ESPN insider Rich Cimini has some interesting things to say about the state of the Jets exiting the 2025 season. We react to that and much more from his Flight Deck podcast, doing a 2025 Jets autopsy of the season. On the other side, it's the DTereman Football Show, and it starts right now.
Bring that here, all right? Go out there and press them and choke them out.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome into another episode of the Believe in Jets podcast. I am your host, DTereman, where today we are reacting to Rich Cimini's latest Flight Deck podcast episode, where he uncovers some interesting things regarding the New York Jets and owner Woody Johnson, how he feels about the 2025 season. We all know when it comes to this team, Woody Johnson's attitude is very important, right? Woody is very hands-off and allows the coaches to do his thing until he doesn't. And Woody is always known for meddling in recent years. Obviously, with the Saleh and Douglas regime, tons of meddling at the end of that one. So far through 1 year, he has done pretty well, allowing Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji to run the show. But Rich had some very interesting things to say about Woody coming out of the 2025 season. Quote, "I can tell you this. Johnson was not happy with the finish to the season, despite the circumstances. He had a rookie quarterback, some injuries, evaluations, some tanking. He was not happy to see his team get blown out 5 times in a row in historic fashion. As you know, the first team in NFL history to lose 5 straight by 23 or more points. That's incredible. Not even Kotite did that, not even Gase. And so Woody, from what I understand, didn't even attend the last 3 football games, which is unlike him. So just because he didn't fire Glenn does not mean he's happy. He was pissed. And so there you have it. So why is Woody Johnson continuing to stick with Aaron Glenn, especially now with John Harbaugh out there? Folks, we might be cooked. That's what I got to say about it. I've not been an Aaron Glenn defender. My whole stance has been that he might not deserve to get fired, but he certainly has not earned a second year, in my opinion. Obviously, when it comes to Woody Johnson, the last time he spoke publicly, fully supportive of Aaron Glenn. Look what he did with the special teams, the run game, this and that. I hug him every day. There was a lot more I'm with Aaron Glenn in those mid-season comments that Woody Johnson made. Now, knowing that Woody Johnson is this mad at the end of the season, peels back the onion layers a little bit to show us that maybe Woody Johnson did not sign off on the Jets sucking this bad in 2025. And that's Woody's right. If Woody's pissed off, then he's pissed off. The one thing I will say is that if you feel this way about your franchise on the first week of January, you needed to make the change. You needed to just pull the plug on Aaron Glenn and start fresh if you don't believe he's the guy. If Woody is this pissed after 1 season of this regime, and rightfully so, I don't think anybody's happy with what happened in 2025. A 3-14 season is hot garbage. But if you are this mad at what is going on already, why are you allowing it to continue into a second year? I've been of the mindset that Aaron Glenn is coming back next year. And until we knew Woody's comments, I thought the next time he would speak would be at the owners' meeting in mid-March. Then we would know more about how he actually feels about Aaron Glenn. But Rich Cimini finding this out and saying he's pissed, didn't even attend the last 3 football games. Folks, I've never been an AG defender, and I wanted to give him a second year. It almost feels like an impossibility right now to think that he can enter year 2 on anything but a hot seat. And if that's the case, don't repeat Robert Saleh 2.0. Please don't do that. I don't want to fire our coach midseason. have a complete wasted 2026 when you could have just wiped the slate clean and started over. So Rich goes into a couple things as to why Woody Johnson might be sticking with Aaron Glenn. None of the answers are good, in my opinion, but this is what Rich had to say about why Aaron Glenn is coming back. He's still owed $40 million, 4 years left on his 5-year deal. And usually, if you give a coach a 5-year deal, you probably anticipate turning it around in 2 or 3 years, right? You wouldn't give him a 3-year contract and then after year 2 he's going into the last year of his deal and you haven't really turned it around fully. So part of it is Woody Johnson probably understood what needed to take place, but also you can't just ride it out and allow him to waste more years on this 4-year deal. Like, just eat the 40 million. In football money, 40 million is basically nothing, right? You gave 40 million to Justin Fields, 30 million of it was guaranteed. So I feel like if it's strictly financially based, this is the dumbest reason to keep Aaron Glenn. Woody Johnson has a franchise that's valued at almost $9 billion. And when he bought the franchise in 2000 for $200 million, I mean, come on. He just bought part of Crystal Palace for $250 million. $40 million is a drop in the bucket to Woody Johnson. I don't care about Woody Johnson's financial situation. I always say if it comes down to it and it's just about money, pay it. Make it happen. Do your magic, Woody. Like, this is why you own all this money. Like, this is why you have it. It's that you can move on, eat the money, pay a new coach, wipe the slate clean. The second reason he mentions why Aaron Glenn might be sticking around is because Woody Johnson made this hire. And it was the first Woody Johnson hire since Todd Bowles in 2015. Obviously, Christopher Johnson took over the hiring process that found us Adam Gase and then Joe Douglas, and then also Robert Saleh because Woody was the ambassador to the UK at the time. So certainly a bit of ego in Woody Johnson, and we know this, right? Like, my stance is it's ego-based because he thought Aaron Glenn was the right guy. So if it's ego-based because he hired the guy himself directly, then sure. Yeah, whatever it is, it's definitely got ego involved with Woody Johnson. The third reason, and part of the reason why Rich thinks that this team has never put out a statement saying that they are sticking with Aaron Glenn for year 2, is because it acknowledges AG's failures. And that's completely reasonable. On Jake Asman's show, a couple times, he and I have talked about this, and he said basically the same thing. If you admit that there's a problem and you need to make a statement, it's bad enough where you should probably correct the problem. So 100% there. I think Jake was spot on, and now Rich is reiterating those same sentiments. Again, these aren't reasons, in my opinion, to keep a guy like Aaron Glenn if you don't believe in him. And maybe Woody Johnson still believes that there's a chance AG can be the guy. I just don't understand why we continue doing these half measures as a franchise. And if we're halfway through next season with an interim head coach and Darren Muji might be out at the end of the season and we're wiping the slate clean, just do it now, man. Like, that's all I ask as a Jets fan who wants to see competency from this franchise. Just do it now. Rip the Band-Aid off and start new. Go get yourself a good head coaching candidate. There are plenty of them out there. Obviously, John Harbaugh was the name Rich Cimini mentioned. That's not going to happen, guys. I understand it's the easiest name to invoke. He's the best name out there. I don't think it's going to happen. They didn't even bother interviewing Mike McCarthy. They're probably not going to interview a Kevin Stefanski. So, unfortunately, Aaron Glenn probably here to stay, but Woody Johnson's comments do not sit well and make me completely nervous about the 2026 season. I'm one who operates with a bit more optimism, I think, than like the neutral Jets fan. And even up until yesterday, before I heard this podcast, I reiterated, I said, if Woody Johnson comes out and backs Aaron Glenn, we have no choice but to take Woody at his word. Now we're hearing that Woody is leaning like he's probably starting to be out on Aaron Glenn. Pull the plug. That's all I can ask is pull the plug, Woody, do the right thing. Feels like an impossible task asking Woody to do anything right with this franchise, but unfortunately, that's where it stands. So AG gets a second year. Woody Johnson probably going to act impulsive in year 2 if it doesn't start right for the Jets. Rich also goes on to talk about the coaching staff search, which I thought was very interesting. Talking about the defensive coordinator search, he said they're looking for an aggressive coach. Wink Martindale's name was brought up in speculation. There's going to be several other candidates that are going to be interviewed, and it's going to be, quote, a long process. He said it might not end until late January before we have a DC and other coaching staff changes in place. So, recording this on January 9th, we have 20-ish days left in the month of January. So, this could be a 2.5 week process. My best guess is it's going to happen the week that I am in Mobile for the Senior Bowl. We will get some coaching news regarding this defensive coordinator search, which has already gotten underway. The Jets did request one interview with defensive pass game coordinator Durante Jones from the Minnesota Vikings, somebody who has worked under Brian Flores for a couple years, was supposed to be the defensive coordinator in waiting if Brian Flores got another head coaching job somewhere else in the league. More on Durante Jones coming up on the channel. You can check that out at the video at the end of this one. Speaking of some other names as defensive coordinator candidates, Rich mentions Jim Leonard, the obvious ties to the Jets franchise, known history with the Broncos, Sean Payton and Aaron Glenn connection, and Darren Muji connection. He also mentions Wink Martindale, which he admitted that he scoffed at first, but it seems like there's real interest. There's rumors that it's just fully from Wink's side of it, drumming up some interest. So definitely something to watch there with Martindale. He also mentioned Raheem Morris, great relationship with AG, a New Jersey guy, better DC than he is head coach. Anthony Weaver from the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, they fired Mike McDaniel, and they're going through a lot more changes in Miami, so perhaps Anthony Weaver would be a name. Al Harris, defensive pass game coordinator from the Bears, who has continually had his units play much higher than the talent level shows, and they create turnovers at an extremely high rate. So Al Harris would probably be my preferred pick. Then you also have Durante Jones. Like I mentioned, they scheduled an interview with him. And then Chris Harris, the interim DC who took over for Steve Wilks, who will get at least some shot. Not saying it's a big possibility he gets the DC job, but he will at least get a chance to interview. And I think that's part of why they moved on from Wilks with 3 or 4 games left in the season. They wanted to at least give an in-house candidate an opportunity to show what they have in case they could be the defensive coordinator candidate. I don't think Chris Harris is going to stay as the full-time DC, but perhaps he goes back to defensive backs coach, and they at least gave him a shot to interview. Speaking of the offensive side of the ball, and it's very telling when a guy like Rich Cimini is saying things like this, not saying this in a disrespectful way to Rich Cimini, but when a dinosaur is telling you need to modernize your offense, that is a damning indictment on what is going on right now. It's 2026, Rich says. You can't live and die with the running game, and that's certainly true. Aaron Glenn during the season before the season even, was kind of clapping back at reporters at the podium when they talked about the pass versus the run, and he said, what team just won the Super Bowl? It was the Philadelphia Eagles. He said, where were they in pass rank? Bottom 3rd of the league, bottom 10 even. He said, where were they in rushing? Top 3, top 5 in rushing. So I bought into the let's emulate the Philadelphia Eagles model, the Baltimore Ravens model with a Justin Fields type quarterback. I totally bought into that vision. That vision worked for about 1 game in Pittsburgh, and even still, it was not a well-oiled machine on offense. They scored 32 points, don't get me wrong, but Justin Fields had several missed reads on zone read keepers where he could have handed it off or could have kept it and did the opposite. And although the run game did stay top 10 all year, the lowest they ever got down to was 9th in the league in terms of rushing yards. It was not very appealing, right? I guess that's the word that I'll use. It was very vanilla, very basic. The only thing that you can say good about the run game is the fact that they had so much success when everybody knew it was coming. They told you they wanted to run at you, and they were still able to do it. You can argue a lot of it was garbage time. A lot of it was when you're down 2 scores in the second half of games. Totally valid reasons. the X's and O's of the run game are pretty sloppy. And it felt like you were just hoping that Breece Hall's talent and Braylon Allen's talent could get you over the hump schematically. So there are definitely some things that need to improve on this offensive staff from a philosophical schematic standpoint. And I do think that they have to bring in a veteran, grizzled quarterback coach who's been there, done that, gone through multiple quarterbacks and helped them develop. The guy I keep invoking is Bill Musgrave. 21 years as a coach, 19 as an OC or quarterbacks coach. Oversaw Matt Ryan in the early years when he won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Derek Carr, who's somebody I do not like as a quarterback, but he had some of his best years under Musgrave as well. He's currently on the Cleveland Browns staff, but they just fired Kevin Stefanski. So who knows who's going to be retained or let go from that organization. So I think a Bill Musgrave type is somebody that you really need to lean into if you're Aaron Glenn. Now, is it foregone that Bill Musgrave would take the Jets job? I don't know. Like that's the stuff that's hard to say. And Jets fans will tell you that no coach worth anything will come to the Jets. That's on AG, right? That he's got to get guys in here that have a proven track record that can help turn this thing around, or else everybody's going to be out mid or end of 2026. So I agree with Rich. They have to modernize their offensive philosophy. They probably need to get an aggressive defensive coach. Durante Jones being the first interview scheduled. I will have more about him later, but I do think coming from Brian Flores' scheme, they're very exotic with their blitzes, their pre-snap looks, their disguises. It's not I don't believe it's an AG fit, right? In terms of AG running his defense. I think it's a little different than that style, but it's not the Steve Wilks where they're just completely, it's like oil and water with AG and Wilks in terms of schematics. So I think Durante Jones, if he is hired as DC, would probably bring some of that Flores flavor and disguise and exotic blitzes, which I think is needed for the Jets, right? You have to be able to scheme up on both sides of the ball. It's not just scheming up offensive X's and O's. You need to be able to out scheme your opponents on a defensive side of the ball too. I felt like the only game where they even had a semblance of being able to scheme up defensively towards their opponent was the Cincinnati Bengals game, which they obviously won. They allowed 37 points though, but they bracketed T. Higgins and Jamar Chase outside of that 144-yard touchdown to T. Higgins. They bracketed those two receivers and forced them to run the ball with Chase Brown. And yes, they put up a lot of yards. They put up a lot of points, but the Jets put up over 500 yards of offense on the other side. So it was the first semblance of complementary football, but it was helped by the schematics on defense, giving the Jets a leg up against a very high-powered offense in Cincinnati. The third and final thing I wanted to talk about was the in-house MVP voting for the team. We all know that Isaiah Williams, the kick and punt returner, received the in-house MVP award, which is voted on by the teammates, not the coaches, not the staff, not personnel executives. It is only by the players. Isaiah Williams gets it. Rich echoes my concerns too. Why didn't Breece Hall get it? You're 1,400 yards from scrimmage back. You're 1,000-yard rusher for the first time since Chris Ivory 10 years ago. Why did Breece Hall not receive the MVP when it felt pretty obvious that he should have been the one to get it? And that's not taking away from Isaiah Williams, right? He was cut after his pretty awful game the first time they played the Miami Dolphins this year, goes back to the practice squad, works his way back up, then all of a sudden is running on 11 personnel on offense, as well as being one of the most dynamic kick and punt returners this game has seen in quite some time. So not trying to take away the accomplishments of Isaiah Williams, but why was he the pick over a guy like Breece Hall, who felt like the most obvious answer? Rich says, and I quote, "Now, the interesting thing about this, and that he did not get the nod from his teammates, they voted kick returner Isaiah Williams the MVP. This is no disrespect towards Williams. I think Hall should have gotten it. Now, why didn't he? That's very interesting. Even Aaron Glenn admitted that there was some internal surprise that Williams got it. Here's my theory on it." So obviously Rich is speculating here, to be completely clear. I think Hall may have upset some teammates toward the end of the year in the next to last game. That would be the game against the New England Patriots where he had the big run and eclipsed 1,000 yards. He checked out of the game with a knee injury, and I think that may have upset some teammates that he tapped out of this game. And of course, he didn't play in the final game against Buffalo. He practiced that week. He certainly practiced enough to play, but he did not play in the finale. And I think, if I'm connecting dots here, that may have had some impact on the voting. So, yeah, I think there's, reason for teammates to be a little bit upset about that. If you're Breece Hall and you eclipse the 1,000-yard mark, the very next drive, you have a knee injury. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Breece Hall faked the knee injury. But it seems like, based on this from Rich, maybe some teammates thought Breece Hall faked the injury or wasn't as injured as he was, that he didn't have to come out of the game and not play in that final game against Buffalo. You could chalk it up to they didn't want to put Breece Hall out there against the Bills backups and have him do a thing and win them a game. And then they wouldn't be picking 2, they'd be picking 6 or 8 in the NFL draft, right? So I don't want to speculate and blame Breece Hall because there is probably some legitimacy to the knee injury, but the fact that he was able to practice almost fully that week, I think he had 1 day off and then it was limited and then full capacity, like the normal progression when you're nursing an injury like that. Maybe he could have played in the Week 18 game against the Bills. We'll never know. I guess my hope personally for Breece Hall is that wasn't the last time we see him against the Patriots when he's limping off the field with trainers. I hope he's here for the long term, at least, the 2-year long term. I know that sounds like a short term, but in NFL speak, that's pretty long term, 2 years, 3 years. So I would like to see Breece Hall back. It is pretty concerning, though, that there is that much speculation about why the MVP went to Isaiah and not to Breece. So those are the things I wanted to touch on. I will leave the link down below for you guys to watch the full or listen to the full video of Rich Cimini. Please leave a comment below what you guys think of all these things. Are you surprised that Woody Johnston's pissed off? Do you agree that he should probably just pull the plug now on Aaron Glenn if he's not going to be fully committed to him in 2026? What do you think about the coaching search as far as DC, quarterbacks coach, other positional coaches, and sound off about Breece Hall not winning MVP? I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Give the podcast a 5-star rating and review. It certainly goes a long way to help grow the channel and show your support. DT signing out saying, let's go Jets.